All right, today we're going to talk about the first step in getting started saltwater fishing on your own here in Southern California. And that's picking out the right rod and reel combo for what you're going to be doing. So whether you get started with 1, 2, or 3 setups, we're going to kind of cover the gamut here so that you can make sure that you're having fun on any trip from half day to full day to overnight and even day and a half trip. So the first one I want to go over is the tried and true 30-pound set. So this setup is a Shimano Torium 30. It's, you go with 20 or 30 wide with anywhere from a 15 to 20 pound drag as your benchmark. You're not going to be doing the full drag, but that's kind of what you're going to be looking for in your reel. And a star drag. Star drags are pretty easy to use. You can cast them if you need to pretty easily, and I just find it to be a very user-friendly reel. And the Torium itself is very well made, but also inexpensive at less than $300. I put about 65-pound braid as a backing on this, and then a top shot or really long leader of 30-pound monofilament. And 30-pound is pretty versatile because I've noticed that anything from the inshore bass species to yellowtail, barracuda, all the way up to yellowtail and dorado, and some of those other pelagics will bite on it. And if you need to go down a size in line, you can always tie on a fluorocarbon leader of 20 or 25 pound if needed, and still fish it really well. I paired this with a Californian rod, something that's relatively inexpensive. I think this one is rated up to 40 pounds, so it's a 20 to 40 pound rating, and it's 7 feet long, so it's versatile. You'd be able to whip a bait out there, but it also has enough backbone to pull on some of those heavier ones. So your 30-pound setup is critical because you're going to be able to use it for just about anything that you're going to catch aside from bluefin tuna, larger bluefin tuna on those trips that I mentioned. All right, your second setup is going to deviate a little bit from that versatility and start to specialize a little bit. So this setup is going to be your lightweight setup or bass setup. And basically, you want to make those half-day trips fun. And, catching a fish, a 5-pound fish on 30-pound test, yeah, that's fun, but pulling it in on something a lot lighter and having some bend in that rod is absolutely fun. And this makes those half-day trips a lot of fun, especially in the middle of the summer when the calico bass are biting off the top of the water and there's barracuda around or even bonita and stuff like that. So this is a Shimano Curado 300, and there's a lot of different brands that make similar size reels. Again, about 7 to 15 pounds max drag that you're not going to be using the entire drag, but something in that benchmark range so that you're looking for it. And don't go out and get like the Bass Pro Shop special or anything like that. A lot of these freshwater reels are fine for freshwater, but they're not made for the strain and the corrosion and stuff like that saltwater brings. And so get something that's pretty robust. If you ever have any question, you can talk to your tackle shop about it. But I put a 25-pound braid as a backing, and then about a 10-foot top shot of monofilament. You can go a little bit higher, a little bit lower, that's fine. But basically, again, lightweight setup so that we're finessing these kind of smaller fish. I paired it with a Phoenix rod that's rated at 10 to 25 pounds. So it's kind of a nice fast action for whipping these, the plastic swim baits out. But you can use a lot of different types of jigs and baits with this, and it's versatile enough to where you're doing half-day trips inshore all the way over to island fishing and things like that. And I've seen people bring in yellowtail and dorado on these. I don't necessarily recommend it, but some people like that challenge. All right, now we got some decisions to make. So the first setup was a 30-pound versatile setup, and then we specialized and went with the lighter setup. So now we're gonna go the other side and go heavier. So we got 2 options for a heavy setup. The first option is gonna be your 50-pound setup. So this specific one is a Daiwa Saltiga 2-speed lever drag. It's a 35 wide that I outfitted with 80-pound braid and a 50-pound monofilament top shot. And I paired it with this Fishing Syndicate 7.5-foot rod that's rated about 80 pounds. This is going to be an absolute yellowtail killer, especially on the yo-yo jig. Now you want to have your setup for the yo-yo jigs because oftentimes they'll grab you and want to pull you down to the rocks. So you got to have some backbone and power to be able to yank them out of there and pull them right up as fast as you can so you don't get sawed off or get eaten by a seal. But they can also be used to fly line on that afternoon tuna bite, which is an absolute beautiful thing when you can, kind of start hooking these tuna on heavier line when earlier you might have been fighting them on 20 or 30 pounds. So, I've seen it happen over and over again where that sun's going down, they start biting on the heavier line. This is a great setup for that. A third application would be sinker rig fishing. Now, again, not ideal for the heavy fish, But when they're marking good sized fish and they're getting them off the sinker rig, this will get you down in the zone. It's still heavy enough to where if you got to put on a little bit heavier monofilament, you can do that and be successful at it. And then, a third application would be fly lining in place of your 30-pound. And by that, I mean, sometimes if you only got 3 setups and you're not bringing this little guy out there on the overnight trip or the day and a half trip, you got to have something that can be your fail safe. And if you're out there fishing 30 pounds, something gets messed up and maybe you get a bird's nest and there's a hot bite, you want to be able to turn around, just grab your other setup, maybe pin on a fluorocarbon leader that goes down to 30 and throw a hook on and get back in there. And this can absolutely do that. So it's got some versatility to it, but it's not quite big enough to be able to do the heavier jigging. So the second option for your heavy setup is the big dog. We're swinging for the fences here. This is going to be your 100-pound setup. So this specific one is a Shimano Speedmaster 20. It's a 2-speed lever drag with a little over 40 pounds of drag on it. I put 120-pound metered braid with 100-pound monofilament top shot. And it's paired with a Californian rail rod rated at about 100 pounds. But basically, this is going to be used almost exclusively for jigging for bluefin tuna. The metered braid helps you know exactly how far you're going when you're dropping down, and whether that captain's saying, hey, they're at about 250 feet, they're at 500 feet. It takes the guesswork out of how far you got to go down in order to get that jig in the zone. Now, if I was going to recommend one of the 2 heavier setups, I'm definitely going to go right now with this 100-pound setup. And the reason why is the bluefin tuna haven't been here for a very long time, and we don't know how long it's going to be until they leave. But right now, we all have the opportunity to jump on these day and a halves and 2.5 days and even overnight trips and catch the fish of a lifetime, fish that are 200 to even 300 pounds. So, the 50-pound setup is fantastic, but if I was going to have 3 set up, I'm going with the 30-pound, I'm going with the lightweight for the inshore stuff, and then I'm going for the big dog to make sure that I'll be able to land that big fish. It's under $400 for the reel. It's less than $300 for the rod. Incredible value for something of such high quality. And there are other brands that make the 2-speed reels for jigging. Penn makes a great one that's also inexpensive but high quality. And then you could spend almost as much money as you want. There's great ones at upwards of $900, so, or even higher. But the idea behind this is, if you're getting started, you want to make sure you have something that's high quality that'll do the job, and this definitely is one of them. So please like and share and follow and all that stuff. Leave a comment if you like what I said. If you didn't like what I said, I'm open to it. Anything that I can do to improve these videos. But I hope this was helpful in helping you get yourself set up for the future, because having these setups is going to enable you to open up your options. And overall, we spend a lot of time researching this stuff. We spend money on these trips, and so you got to make sure you get the right gear. Aside from that, I wish you the best of luck this season. Go out there, book those trips. You spend a lot of money to catch these fish, so go out there and make them pay.